fellow Rotarians, I want to thank you for the opportunity to share some of my thoughts with you on the state of the Bahamian economy and some projections for the future. Firstly, I'd like to express the appreciation of the government of the Bahamas for all the good work that Rotary does in this country. And I'm pleased to speak on the Bahamian economy, not because it is ever an easy topic to talk about, but because it is easy to be able to put the economic situation in further perspective than is sometimes done these days, almost on a daily basis. It is without doubt that the Bahamian economy, as indeed the global economy, has gone through a very bruising period in the last 2.5 years. And I think it is now widely accepted that signs of economic recovery are beginning to emerge in many different jurisdictions. And these signs are now beginning to become evident here at home in the Bahamas. The global economic crisis profoundly affected or impacted the Bahamian economy, mainly in the tourism and foreign direct investment sector. In 2009, the last year for instance, tourism stopover visitors to the Bahamas declined by 10%, after a decline of more than 6% in the previous year. And foreign direct investment in the Bahamas declined by a whopping 22%. Compounding this deterioration in the principal drivers of the Bahamian economy in 1999 was a contraction in domestic credit, which has historically provided strong support for domestic demand. It was primarily the confluence of these restraining factors which led to an estimated 4.5% decline in real domestic product, GDP. Employment suffered badly in this recent economy, and by the end of last year, unemployment rose to more than 14%. The fiscal situation of the government deteriorated, as it did in the previous year, 2008-2009, when it fell by 8%. In fiscal 09-10, the revenue fell a further 3%, driving the fiscal deficit of the Bahamas to 5.7% of GDP, and pushing the government's debt to GDP to 46.9%, and the national debt to GDP a ratio of 53.1% at the end of fiscal year 2009-2010. In the meantime, the situation was impacting the asset quality of the commercial banks, as the ratio of non-performing loans rose to 10% at the end of the fiscal period last year, fiscal period in 2009-2010, as borrowers experienced difficulties in maintaining their bank payment obligations, and banks were therefore obliged to continue to increase their provisions against loan losses. The banking system's capital ratios remain healthy, and liquidity also remains strong, due mainly from the proceeds from the government foreign currency borrowing during fiscal year 2009-10, and from a weakened domestic demand, which eased the outflow that arises from foreign spending. This is also the principal reason for the increase in international reserves which the Bahamas holds. Notwithstanding the slowdown in foreign direct investment inflows, international reserve levels remain relatively strong, registering just over $250 million for 2009, following an increase of $100+ million from 2008, and continuing strong into this year, 2010. Inflationary pressures were subdued during 2009, when consumer price inflation, as measured by changes in the average retail price index, slowed to 2.1%. Now, of course, there are distinct signs that the worst is over and that the tide is beginning to turn. For example, the critical barometer of economic well-being, foreign direct investment, appears to have reversed its downward slide, as the first 6-month period in this year, 2010, has posted an increase of 3.5% over the corresponding period last year. Another signal of change in fortunes is the significant slowdown in the rate of increase in non-performing loans. To these may be added the improvement in tourism output, now also in evidence. Nothing is more critical to a revival of the Bahamian economy than a revival in tourism. And year-on-year performance shows significant increases in 2010 over 2009. In fact, in the first 6 months, in the 6 months and 9 months through September, that is quite evident. And indeed, to the last 5 months, the increase represents significant improvements over the corresponding period in the previous year, to what appears to be, to us, a clear trend of tourism revival. Also, it appears that unemployment has leveled off. National insurance statistics suggest that the rate of layoffs has slowed. In fact, some companies have begun hiring new people. Taken together with a modest rate of increase in the U.S. economy, driven in part by consumer spending, encourages the view that there are early signs of an economic recovery in the works for the Bahamas. But perhaps the most encouraging sign for the future comes from prospects which we are able to identify as likely developments. Most important for projections of employment stability and growth are a number of ongoing infrastructure and construction projects, both private and public, which are continuing and in some cases nearing completion, opening opportunities for permanent employment in new premises coming on stream. We are also able to identify a number of proposed foreign direct investments, both here in New Providence and in around Bahamas and elsewhere, spending over the next 4 years and domestic investment for the next 3 years. Together, these projects have the potential of unleashing the kind of dynamism within our economy that can bring unemployment to a low level, indeed, I might say the lowest level ever, and create the economic platform which will enable us to pursue the advances in education, health and social and business development, and the systemic efficiencies that would substantially progress our broad national development. This morning, we announced the signing of a memorandum of understanding with Cable and Wireless Communication plc UK in connection with the sale of a 51% interest in the Bahamas Telecommunications Company. The privatization of BTC and the eventual liberalization of the cellular market bode well for the economy. We expect that consumers will benefit from access to higher quality and more affordable telecommunication services all across the Bahamas. Improved communication services will certainly assist us in our efforts to become and remain more competitive as a business and tourism destination. There is every reason to expect that the privatized BTC will continue a policy of outsourcing non-core functions, thereby supporting the large and growing small business community which depends heavily on BTC today. No doubt, new entrepreneurial opportunities will also become available to Bahamians as a result of the liberalization of the telecommunications market. Are there downsides or risks in our prospects? Indeed there are, but there are also opportunities. There are threats posed by the continued economic sluggishness in Europe. National debt issues continue to threaten several European countries with the potential of destabilizing the Eurozone and derailing the US recovery. These are risks to be recognized, but not risk to immobilize us from ensuring our readiness to take full advantage of the opportunities that are becoming available to us. It seems to us now that a major opportunity is emerging for the Bahamas. I've said on previous occasions that we needed economic growth to relieve many of our social ills in this country. It appears to me that we're now on the precipice of experiencing that growth. I'd like to thank you for your attention and assure you my willingness to answer any and all questions you have about public business in the Bahamas. Thank you for that.
Prime Minister told me that he would entertain your questions. I'm sure you have a lot of questions for him. And I know I'm going to have him come back to the podium to address your questions. And at this time, we'd like to entertain some questions from you. Do you have any questions for Prime Minister? Correct.